Hey, this is Tommy John, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
You can put it on the board. Yes!
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP TV. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon. And, of course, the king of all those massive cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had. Probably be the best you ever had as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call and find out what's for dinner. 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935 for UppercutChops.com. Big round of applause for them and everybody tuning in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and our independents from coast to coast. Also, everybody watching on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, and WOW Cable Television and Hotel TV in over 500,000 rooms from coast to coast. Of course, the UppercutChops.com seems to be a really fitting intro or a very fitting sponsor for today's show. Seeing that we're going to talk a little hockey with our ESPN NHL hockey analyst, that would be Dave Jackson. And Dave, thanks for joining us once again here on the show.
Sal, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Buddy, there is a lot going on in the hockey world, and I'm going to let you pick your favorite topic that we discussed previously, or the one that's of most interest to you, and let's just dive into it right now.
Well, I like to. I base mine on basically my Twitter feed and what hot button topics people, ask me questions, come at me. Some people seem to feel that I'm still a surrogate, that I'm still on the ice, and they're yelling at me. But really, I just sort of cultivate new stories that way. But the big one everybody's talking about is the McAvoy hit from Boston. He was just suspended for 4 games yesterday. People are asking me what the rule is there, and it's like, you need to, when you make contact with a player, regardless of your size, you've got to make an attempt to go through the core. It has to be a full body hit, and if the head is contacted but it's not picked, then sometimes that's the rubber the green and you get away with it. However, in this case here, it was a little bit late. The puck is gone, player's leaning over, and there's nothing but head contact, shoulder to head. The referees have 2 options there. 2-minute minor for illegal check to the head, or a match penalty for illegal check to the head. They called the match. They went to review. They wanted to make sure they got it right. Really quick review. They got it right. They upheld the 5-minute match, and it ended up in a 4-game suspension. So that's, for people saying it was a good hit. I mean, I don't think McAvoy is a dirty player. I mean, I think he's an all-star. He's a great player. I just think maybe it was a bit of reckless judgment, and you've got to hit through the body. You can't be picking the head.
Well, I think that's probably the best way to say it, reckless judgment. I looked at it and I said, yes, it was probably avoidable, right? But obviously you're trying to finish your check and you're trying to take the guy out. And let's face it, if you're on the offensive end of the ice, right, you're trying to take control of that puck and set something up. I mean, I kind of get it, hoping that there's a turnover. Right. So, I mean, if this was in the middle of the ice and it was just, somewhere in the neutral zone and you're thinking, well, hey, all right, now they're begging for a fight. Right. And that would be just straight malicious, because let's face it, the puck could go either way. But when it's already deep in the offensive zone, right, for the checking team, so to say, I mean, I sort of get it, even though it was after the fact.
And what some people don't realize, I mean, if you've never been down on the ice at that level of hockey, things happen so fast. I mean, what you think as a player is about to be a clean hit things can change in a nanosecond. Body position changes, and you end up making a hit that you probably didn't want to. You wish you had it back, but you've already committed, and those things happen.
The speed of the game is that a lot of people don't seem to understand. Like you were saying, whether you're sitting, let's face it, folks, if you go to a hockey game, you understand the speed because, it's right there in front of you. But if you're close, maybe on the lower level, you can really capture the speed. But if you're on the glass, you really get an idea of the speed. And sometimes, it's hard to slam on the brakes. It really is. Just from the spectator's perspective. But I can't imagine watching this happen right in front of you. And as an official, you've got your head going all these different directions. And sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. And people say, well, he had money on that game and he's not going to call that or some crap like that. You hear it and you see it. But I think that would be more possible if that were a case like we saw in basketball, right? Where certain things happen in front of you. But there's so much speed in hockey and there's so much going on. And it's like playing. It's literally like playing my favorite game, which is that bubble hockey game in the arcade. I love that game. I'm not very good at it, but it's so fast. But folks, if you're watching this, you really got to have your head on a swivel.
I compare it to, I always use this analogy, but I compare it to NASCAR. And I'm a huge NASCAR fan. And until you've been at a race and you see how fast these cars go and how close they are, and there's no room out there. And, one little turn of the steering wheel and you cause a 15-car wreck. But if you've never been to a race and you only watch it on television, it doesn't look like they're going that fast. They're just going on a circle, and anybody could do that. No, you got to go to a race, and hockey's the same way. You sit down on the glass, like you said, and you realize how little space there is out there. And you realize how, as a referee, you're looking around bodies. You're fighting for body position yourself. You're fighting for sight lines. It's not easy. It really isn't. And the speed of the game, it goes like that. And I tell you what, people used to ask me after the game, did you see so-and-so make this play? I may have, I may not have, because I am so focused on not missing a penalty.
Yeah, how can you watch everything? Let's face it, there's so much going on. You've got a couple of 100 feet of ice. And let's face it, you've got action behind the puck. You've got things going on in the middle of the ice. You've got all kinds of crazy things going on. And let's face it, you got a deadly weapon flying around the rink. Then the players are wearing deadly weapons on their feet. They've got a deadly weapon in their hand. And then you've got other guys trying to take somebody 5 rows up in, right, with these incredible hits, whether they're going to cross-check them or just hip check them. That's a lost art. It's one thing I want to mention real quick. I miss the hip checks, right? The old Steve Smith hip checks, that kind of thing. And boy, there are certain aspects of the game that I really miss. But at the same time, my favorite part of the newer edition of hockey, I'm completely digressing here because I love the overtime 3-on-3.
Isn't that exciting?
That is end-to-end action.
That is really good hockey. But, you go back to the hip check, and I think the game has changed a bit. Those big hip checks back in the day, players weren't moving as fast. We had the center ice red line with the 2-line pass. So players had to sort of hold up, get the pass, and then build speed. Now they're in full flight, and that D-man is just trying to keep up with these guys. You're just trying to box the guy out, keep him to the outside. To go and commit, and they're so shifty now. I tell you what, sometimes you commit trying to make a hip check on a guy like McDavid, he's going to make you look foolish.
Right. And the one thing I think about with the change, now the 2-line pass available, so you can basically have your cherry pickers out there. So back in the day, those guys used to get drilled because they were they're straddling that offensive zone. They're just parked over there, right? So what did the Devils do? The Devils came in with what? They would jam the neutrals, the trap, and then the wings with their left wing lock. They would jam up the neutral zone and make it impossible to get through. And you see this pushback sort of offensive move, whether it's on the power play, likely you see it on the power play, right? You see that pushing back kind of idea, which I always thought carrying the puck across was better. But with some of the rule changes, like you said, the hip check, we don't really see much of it. And we see a lot of that push them back. Enter into the zone. So you don't see any dump and chase like my beloved Hawks used to do all the time, and it'd take 30 seconds just to corral the puck in the first place.
Well, it's a possession game. I was playing men's league hockey on Friday, and somebody dumped the puck in, and we all looked at him sideways. What are you doing? No one's chasing that puck. Keep it on your stick. But
that's true.
It's funny, but with the red line, it just stretches the ice. You've got the forwards; they're high now. Those guys, they have to make a decision. Are they going to hold the blue line, or are they going to back up and try and protect against the long pass? So it really stretches the ice out.
Yeah, and you see a lot more of those big hits because teams don't want to get caught with somebody cherry picking behind the plate. Right? There were certain players, to be nameless, of course, that were real popular for that back in the day. But nowadays, it's almost like you'll see more of that McAvoy type of a penalty somewhere in the middle of the ice because somebody doesn't want to get burnt on the back end. And we see how many guys here in our last minute of the segment, how many guys do we see that are offensive-minded defensemen? It's almost like they only play one side of the puck, and they take bad penalties in the middle of the ice because they don't want to get beat on that breakaway feed, that stretch pass.
I mean, that can happen, but don't forget, too, those guys coming through the middle now are coming through with a lot more speed.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what I said earlier. Sometimes you line a guy up and you're trying to make a clean hit. But with the speed that's happening, it just in a millisecond, that just changes. And all of a sudden, you're vulnerable, and you just try and get a piece of them.
That's right. You know what? In fact, when we come back, folks, we're going to talk a little bit about disallowed goals. And more particularly, something that happened recently between Anaheim and Pittsburgh. Back here on the sports segment, on the Sports Circus with Dave Jackson, our ESPN hockey NHL rules analyst. And of course, he's going to let him tell everybody about an upcoming game in the next segment. Lots more to come, folks. Don't go anywhere.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now.
Okay, we'll let that play out. We've got about 2.5 minutes or so. And what's cool about this is I make mistakes all the time. And in regular, recorded programs for the most part, they edit them out and so forth. I don't edit them out.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Sure.
Right. Let it get out there because people see you're real and they hear a conversation in between. And I'm cool with that. It really doesn't matter. I used to worry about it thousands of episodes ago, but when you get to a point, how many games have you done in your entire career?
1,550 NHL and another 450 professional minor.
There it is. All right. So
2,300 games, somewhere around there.
Right. And with all the on-air work that I've done, when I was working with ESPN in Los Angeles, we had a year and a half of shows that I was with them, and then I started my own gig. So I've got about the same amount of shows on camera and on the mic. And like I said, I used to worry about making a little bit of a mistake here and there, saying a bad word, which, of course, we're not going to do here. But more importantly, I got past, oh, no, I just made a mistake. People would point it out. I'm like, yeah, so what? Really? End of day, it doesn't really matter at this point. Now, does it? So
it doesn't. People don't listen to you for perfection.
That's right. And I think what they really want are people that are real in the first place. And so I think a lot of people are sort of missing that one. When people do their podcast, right? Everyone does a podcast, whatever. There are 3 million of them out there. Everybody wants to be a star. They don't know how to distribute it. That's the problem. They don't know how to get eyeballs and ears and stuff to it, where we figured that part of it out. And that's why I produce other shows for other people and for other programs. But end of day, you've got to know how to get it out there to the people. But still, everybody corrects their stuff in these podcasts instead of just being themselves, right? Okay, so we're going to go in with the Anaheim thing. Right?
Sure.
And we'll finish up the back end of the segment with Cale Makar. And then you can be on your way because you said you've got a couple of segments in you. All right.
For sure.
That's good stuff. All right. Where are you tonight? Are you back at the home floor?
I'm off tonight. I'm fighting a bad head cold or COVID. I don't know which it is, but just gonna relax. Maybe take the dog for a walk, get some fresh air.
That's what you got to do. Get out from being indoors and get out and walk that dog. I walk my dogs every night. All right, here we go. Coming right back.
Directly at uppercutchops.com.
You're listening to the Sports Circus, and I'm Mike Golick.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at ESPN. And here to tell you all about ESPN hockey would be our NHL rules analyst and ESPN's hockey's rules analyst, Dave Jackson.
How's it going, Sal?
Everything's great, buddy. What do you got coming up on ESPN?
Well, tomorrow night, big game in Boston. Toronto Maple Leafs at the Boston Bruins, ESPN Plus, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Should be a great game. And if there's any controversy, well, you probably see me come in and try and explain it to you.
All right, that's good stuff. Whenever there's controversy around Las Vegas, usually I'm around it. But the good news is, not when it comes to hockey. So, hey, let me ask you about controversy with Anaheim and Pittsburgh. And disallowed goals. I mean, This happens. We used to see, and I remember talking to you about this before, with players in the crease and so forth and interfering with the goaltender. What happened between Anaheim and Pittsburgh that got Cronin ejected from the game?
Well, that was a big deal too on Twitter. I'll try and break it down. Actually, the referee Freddie Lecuyer made a great call in real time. A lot of times that kind of interference goes unnoticed, and it's up to the team that gets scored on to challenge it, and then it often will get reversed. But in this case, he had a great sight line, disallowed the goal in real time. So once he disallowed the goal, it became upon the scoring team, which is Anaheim, to challenge it, to say, we don't think it is goalie interference. So they make that challenge. So it's important to understand, though, that once a coach makes a challenge, coach's challenge, it's now taken out of the referee's hands. A lot of comments on Twitter, people talking about, of course the referee's not going to reverse his own call. He made it on the ice. He's not going to reverse it when he watches the video. He has no say in it. He is on the video sometimes, looking at it. The situation room in Toronto, which is run by hockey operations, they might ask him a question or two for context. But ultimately, Toronto makes the decision. They decide whether the right call on the ice was made or if they're going to overturn the call. They upheld the call. So the people yelling at the referee for making the wrong call, it's kind of misplaced because it was upheld by hockey operations. It was the right call. And to break the call down, you had the attacking forward who bumped into the defenseman with his chest, with his shoulder in the chest. Bigger, the forward maybe bigger, stronger, but either way, he knocked a player without the puck into his own goaltender, causing contact with the goaltender. Had it ended right there, we might have had a good goal. However, the attacking forward then stayed in the crease, both feet in the crease, preventing the D-man from exiting. And what we'll never know, but the goaltender was not able to get up top of his crease. He couldn't because the guy was standing, even though there was no contact, he's standing 2 feet in the crease. His elbow, his hip might be impeding his vision a little bit or at least distracting him. And you can't do that. The goaltender is allowed to operate freely in the blue paint, and he didn't allow him to do that. So in my opinion and hockey operations opinion, the right call was made.
Yeah, and I saw the elbow go up to basically hold that guy in the blue paint on top of it. So he was impeding the goaltender's ability to play his position fully, as you said. And when I watched it, then it was challenged, right? You lose the challenge, and then you get out of line, right? You get yourself running your mouth. You get 2 more minutes. Now you got a double minor going, and a couple of goals are scored later. Somehow Anaheim still wins the game.
Yeah.
But this is
right. That just happens. It's frustration. I know Greg Cronin. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a great coach, a real student of the game. We've always had some great respectful conversations, and he's just frustrated. And those things happen. I'm sure he'll laugh about it tomorrow, and everybody move on. There'll be no hard feelings, no grudges, and just move on. Yeah,
and we used to see rules where you couldn't have any of your skates or anything in the crease whatsoever, right? And so that obviously has changed over the last, several years. And so now
we had an old toe in the crease rule that just went by the wayside because that didn't work either.
Right. Hey, let me ask you, just because we're thinking of goaltenders, what do you think about those the trapezoid, that whole rule where the goalie can't go roaming off like the old Ed Belfour would go out to lunch out in the corners or whatever, and and somehow he'd find his way back into the crease, but you're like, dude, what are you doing over there in the corner? Do you like the trapezoid or do you not?
From a fan's perspective, I understand why they want the goalie to be allowed to go anywhere. It's exciting.
Yeah.
From a referee's perspective, strictly selfish. Every time the goalie wanders out of his crease, there's potential for controversy. He gets the puck in the corner, he loses the puck, he gets bumped, he gets run over, he gets tripped, the goal gets scored. It's all on the referee. So, you know what? As a referee, I like the fact that he's kind of on a leash. He's got to stay near his crease.
Right.
But, it's all good. It's exciting. Now that I'm no longer on the ice, they can do whatever they want with the trapezoid.
Right. Well, see, I miss the idea of the goaltender roaming around because, I mean, let's face it, it made the game just a little bit more exciting.
You never knew it was going to happen the second the goaltender left the crease. It's always open for controversy.
That's right. Okay, more controversy. How about the no call with Cale Makar in Buffalo?
I saw that, and being from Denver, so many of my friends and neighbors have my cell phone number, and they're up in arms. There's nothing that says my judgment is any better than the referee's judgment on the ice. So it was a judgment call by him. Had I been on the ice, I think it was worth 2 minutes. It's not a major penalty. It was a little shove from behind in the danger zone. You got a player. I mean, Cale Makar. He's today's Bobby Orr. Basically, He's the best defenseman in the game. He's electric. He's going for a loose puck. 6 feet from the boards. He's not expecting to get shoved. And Kalak Poso is not a dirty player. He's a good guy, clean player. Just a bit of a reckless little shove on the lower back. You're trying to put the brakes on. You're going straight at the boards. You're not angling. The puck is sitting there for you, and you're not expecting that little push on the back. Hit the boards fairly hard. Left the game. Thank goodness he came back afterwards. Hopefully there's no lasting ill effects. In my opinion, probably a 2-minute minor for boarding would have been the appropriate call there.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it and I said, this one certainly can go either way. Just as a fan of hockey, I couldn't skate to save my life, so I don't even know what it's like to be in that position. But yeah, again, in that danger zone, I get it. But at the same time, it wasn't a malicious hit. It wasn't something.
No.
It really looked like he was almost being hooked. Like Cale was being hooked from behind a little bit, and it almost looked like he held the stick under his arm, which you see quite a bit, right? Yeah. But unfortunately, it was too close to the wall.
And that same play, I mean, he had just contacted the puck, so it really wasn't interference. It was just a little shove. So if that happens at the blue line, for example, and he shoves him from behind like that, it's not a cross check. Cale probably goes down to his knees, gets back up, play on. But it's just, you bring that other factor in, the proximity to the boards, kind of a danger zone. And I think the job of the referee is to just keep the players safe and, look out for player safety. So, it certainly wasn't cut and dried, but that's my opinion on it.
So per game, how many times are you called upon to make a judgment on something from the announcing booth?
It goes in ebbs and flows. I mean, I think I've done 2 games now where I haven't been asked once. Opening night, we had 3 games opening night, and I came on 8 or 9 times.
Wow.
So it's completely random. I mean, some games, team will take a commanding lead. The other team sort of, folds, and there's nothing happening. You get other games where it's intense. There's stuff going. There's stuff happening all the time. Guys are crowding the crease. Guys are making big hits. A lot more chance I'll come in on those things. So it's just hit or miss. There's no real number.
So let's go in our last couple of minutes of the segment here. Then I know you have to go. Let's take a quick look at the ideas of penalties and teams at either extreme of the standings. And our current status, of course, with Vegas being in their position, and you look at San Jose being in the opposite position. Do you see more penalties called on extreme winning teams and losing teams rather than those in the middle of the pack?
Well, I think, and I know people will disagree with me, referees don't care who wins the hockey game. They really don't. I did over 1,500 games, regular season games in the NHL. Not once did I go into a game thinking, I hope so-and-so wins. Never. I went into every game hoping I didn't embarrass myself and that I was perfect. And it never happened. I don't think I ever had a perfect game, but that's your goal. Your goal is perfection, and you go out there and you call what you see. And you know you'll be supported calling what you see. If it's a penalty, call it. Now, a really good team and a really bad team, people will say, well, we get a lot more penalties because we're not good. No, teams don't usually take penalties when they have the puck. So if you're in possession of the puck 60, 70% of the game, the likelihood of you taking a penalty is a lot less than when you're chasing the puck and trying to get the puck back. That's when you're defending, most penalties, let's face it, most penalties are on the defensive team. Trip, hook, hold, body check, elbow, high stick. It's always in an attempt to stop the other team or get the puck back. So a team that's not playing well probably will take more penalties.
Okay, so you've got a game tomorrow, and go ahead and tell everybody about that once again as we get out of here for the segment.
For sure. It'll be a good game. Toronto Maple Leafs at Boston Bruins, ESPN Plus at 7:30 Eastern Time. Should be a good one.
All right, and you can catch Dave on ESPN doing all those calls from the booth when they say, let's go to our expert, our rules expert, and that would be Dave Jackson, ESPN NHL rules analyst. Make sure you catch him over there, and we're going to be back here on the Circus in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come. Okay, Dave. Now you can go ahead and get out of here if you need to. And hey, thanks for coming on. And of course, I didn't say a particular time next week only because we have an open schedule. Whatever your schedule is, we'll flex over to that.
Cool. I'm going away Friday morning to Phoenix. My daughter's looking at schools.
Oh, okay.
And I'm staying over Sunday night because I'm going to the NASCAR finale in Phoenix. I'll be home Monday.
Oh, by the way, so your daughter's going into college?
She's a senior right now, yeah. So she's going down to look at ASU and U of A.
Okay. Well, if you need a little bit of extra whatever, for the last 23 years, I've been on the academic advisory committee for Duke, and I can potentially help with certain hurdles if she needs a little bit of help with that. Because I talk to high school seniors on a regular basis to help them get to the next.
Right on.
Yeah. So
Thank you. Appreciate it.
If you need it, happy to help.
Tremendous. All right. Sir. I'll be in touch Monday. I'll shoot you a text and some ideas, and we'll book something.
Have fun.
See you, man.
Bye-bye. All right. That was Dave Jackson, our hockey analyst who works with ESPN Hockey. And he's on television a couple, 3 times a week. Good stuff. And let's see what we've got going
living
here.
With diabetes is a pain. You've got it.
We still are on break, so we're going to go ahead and let that sit. As a matter of fact, I think in the next segment, so we're off air right now. We're on commercial break. We're not off air. Everybody else can still watch this. And I think what we're going to do is I might shift into... I'm going to shift into the World Series for a moment, and then I have to talk college football because I have something really, really ridiculous, and it's about one club that is, they say they made a defensive improvement, but they certainly didn't. All right, so let me go ahead and check a few things out here. I hope you're enjoying today's program. And Dave Jackson will be with us again next week. Not really sure when, just a lot of it depends on his schedule. And what a good guy. Dave's a wonderful guy. In fact, we'll give him a little round of applause because we can. And it's nice to be around nice people, and I'm sure each and every one of you would agree with that. All right, so let's see where we're at over here. Oh, here we got some goofiness, and then we're going to go ahead and get into segments. Here we go.
That's ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Hey, this is Josie Scott from Josie Scott's Saliva, and you're listening to the Sports Circus with Sal Tuzzolino.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP TV. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the American Business Trust Company, helping companies with strategy, sales and marketing, capital resources, and establishing companies with physical locations or on the internet. You decide. You contact the American Business Trust Company with all your ideas, and they will make whatever recommendations they can to help your organization. Email them at info@abtrustco.com. That's info@abtrustco.com for more information. All right, welcome back to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates, plus our independents from coast to coast. Some of those affiliates include our friends over in Honolulu on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home to the New York Yankees and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Welcome into everybody that may be listening with our friends over in Southern California on NBC News and CNBC Financial, right here in Las Vegas, KJPT Jackpot Radio over in Auburn, Alabama. That would be home of the Atlanta Braves, WAUD. Over in Atlanta, 99.1 FM, WDJY, and down in South Florida, don't want to forget our friends over there at WBGY, 90.3 FM, plus all of our independents, literally about 200 odd stations. We throw those ones out there because those are the ones that I can remember seemingly, and the rotation goes in and out, folks, and sometimes the stations will tune in, pick it up, sometimes they won't. It's just the way of the game. But everybody on television gets a chance to see this on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, Wow Cable Television in different markets like Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Tampa, even in Los Alamos, New Mexico. Yeah, folks, we're everywhere. You can't get away from us. Also in hotels in all major markets, all secondary markets, and tertiary markets, 210 Nielsen-rated markets on hotel television, gaining about 4 million impressions per hour. So if you've been keeping score, or better yet, watching Major League Baseball, here we are at the end of the season, and watching what's happening with this World Series, folks, I got to tell you, this is by far one of the most exciting World Series, not because of the scores or whatever. It's because, for me, it's one of the most exciting World Series in the last 25 years, because these teams, they don't just play station-to-station baseball. They actually move the runners. They'll stretch doubles into triples, make it exciting, because there's so much speed on the field. And then you've got a lot of good defense on the field, too. You've got big bats out there. You've got good pitching out there. You've got really good managing between these two clubs. So, what you may like about it, somebody else may not like about it. And those people that are used to going to baseball games in today's time and saying, well, I got to get out of here because I got to get little Joey or Josephine or whatever. I got to get them back home because it's bedtime or whatever. Listen, if you're into looking at a time that I can only be at the game for this amount of time, you're watching the wrong sport. Baseball should not have a clock, which they do have a pitch clock, which I don't like this. And they do have some limitations to speed the game up, but it really isn't speeding it up too much, so to say, especially in the postseason. And thank God they don't use that second base runner to start out the extra innings anyway. But what you're seeing are two managers that are very good at what they do with two contrasting different types of teams. You have one that was built through free agency, with the Texas Rangers largely are, and then you've got a homegrown team as the Arizona Diamondbacks. And boy, those guys are speedy, and they do it all well. They deserve to be in the World Series. I mean, let's face it. Look at the road that they had to get there. They beat some very good teams. right? And you got to remember, in case you don't, they led the National League West for a large amount of the season. Further, they beat some really good teams in the playoffs to get where they're at. And they have really been taking it to Texas when it was their turn, despite the fact that the series is where it is. The reality is that, look, you got to win 4 games. 4 games. Even my own brother asked me about Texas putting this thing away. And yes, I believe Texas is going to win it. And as a matter of fact, folks, and I can show you this because a lot of people say, well, you're full of crap and whatever. Okay, I have to hide the actual ticket number and whatnot. But I can show you this. And I did this back on March 31st. I can't show you the ticket number. Okay, but check this out. Let me fold this just so everybody on television could see this. Okay. So anyway, well, there's an ID number here. I'll have to close that. Look at this. All right, so here. I did this at Boyd Gaming back on March 31st. I had the Texas Rangers to win the World Series at plus 5,000 or 50 to 1. In case you think that I'm just making this up while I'm rooting for the Rangers, look, I believe so much in the Rangers and their moves in the offseason that I bet on it. It doesn't matter how much you bet on it. The reality is I bet on it. And it's the old, if you believe in yourself, bet on yourself. Well, I believed in the Rangers, that the Rangers made all the right moves, unlike my beloved and horrific Chicago White Sox that lost 100 games this year. Well, guess what? You got to remember the Arizona Diamondbacks lost 100 games a couple of seasons ago. And look where they're at. So teams can turn it around very quickly. But the Rangers, the way they put that team together, they really did a great job in the offseason. And by the way, at the trade deadline, they filled the gaps that they needed to because they knew they had some pitching holes to fill. So this team was built to win, but the Arizona Diamondbacks were homegrown to win. Fantastic management with Torey Lovullo. And let's face it, the Diamondbacks organization did a phenomenal job of preparing this team for the long run. And they're going to be good for a long time, folks. This isn't a one-time trip to the moon. So those guys will be good for quite some time. No question. In fact, let's give them a nice round of applause because we can. So great news for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And by the way, the Rangers have a lot of young talent. And let's face it, with the losses of Scherzer and Adolis Garcia, they still piled up 11 runs in the last game. I mean, look, those guys, man, they can just flat knock the cover off the ball. They've got some great young rookies on this team. These guys do it all. And more importantly, what one of the big differences between these two teams is the fact that Texas has better arms in the outfield. I wouldn't necessarily say on the pitcher's mound because I think the starting rotations are almost a dead heat. I'll probably give a slight edge to Arizona in the starting rotation. But more importantly, those arms in the defense out there in the outfield, we've already seen that make a difference in this series. As a matter of fact, one of those arms in Adolis Garcia is out for Texas, but they still have next man up. These guys are good. They have a sound business plan on the field. Where some clubs, you look at them, you scratch your head like, well, first of all, how'd you get here? Second of all, did you get here because you mashed your way here? Did you just hit home runs and home runs and home runs? And I think the Phillies are one of those clubs. And I like the Phillies. I like the players. I think every team should have a Kyle Schwarber. And that I'd say that as a White Sox guy, even when he was with the Cubs, because I love Schwarber's ability to just mash the ball. But in reality, look, the guy gets on base, but every team needs that kind of personality. And I think Bryce Harper's turned into that also for the Phillies. But the problem is when you play station-to-station ball outside of Trey Turner, those guys literally play station-to-station ball. And it's hard to advance in this game as we see it today with some of these rule changes. The speedier teams are the teams that do have multiple players. They can switch hit. They can hit from both sides. They can steal bases. They do the little things. And what I love about Arizona is they sacrifice the runners over. They move the runners over. They'll play small ball. And that's something that's a lost art in today's game. I can say that as a former baseball player, as a pitcher, That kind of stuff drove me crazy when you had speedy guys out there bouncing around on the base pass. And as a lefty, I could throw and pick them off once in a while at first base, but all they did was wreak havoc out there for the pitcher. And believe me, that is no fun, especially when they're on second base, jumping back and forth. And you got to move your head back. You move your head back. So I get my glove here. Right. So here I am. I'm on the hill, right? And I'm in the set position. And I've got to do this, look at second. I got to look at home. And I got to keep doing this kind of thing. And what it does, folks, is it actually takes your attention off home plate and the hitter. And unfortunately, that distraction is a real distraction. So for those that think, oh, well, it's not, like hell it's not. It's absolutely a distraction. For those that say that, well, the pitcher is going to have to get over it. Well, yes, but what the pitcher's looking for at second base, it's the old daylight play, right? So we're looking for, if you've got a left-handed hitter up there and a guy on second, you're looking for the shortstop to sneak in behind that runner. And if there's a little daylight, if that pitcher could see that there is a gap in between the runner and second base and his guys there, he's going to whirl and throw to second base. And we've already seen a pickoff at second base recently, right? And we saw that, in fact, we saw people run through stop signs, which we'll get to in a minute, but also maybe in the next segment. But also we have seen, I think it was, who the hell was it? Anyway, it was, Tommy Pham. Tommy Pham got picked off of second base, right? And then you see Christian Walker run through stop signs at third base, and it's just an aggressive style of baseball. Christian didn't really do anything wrong outside of not listening to his third base coach. But aggressive base running is what makes these games fun. And folks, this is a great World Series. Doesn't matter who wins. This is the kind of series that a lot of old school players like myself, we love seeing this kind of thing. Back here in a few minutes on the Circus. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come.
Can't beat fun at the old ballpark, friends. High pop fly. That would be a home run in a phone booth. I don't know what the big deal about Cracker Jack is. Did you ever go buy a pack of Cracker Jack thinking you're going to get a prize and find no prize in the box? Here's the pitch. That might not sound important to some people when you're a little kid, especially from humble origin, and they cheat you out of a prize. There's a bouncing ball. Second baseman has a Barbary over to first. It's hard to think in laudatory terms of the product.
I think if there was an occasional box of Cracker Jacks that found no prizes for the little Harry Carey many years ago.
You got that right. And boy, when a box of Cracker Jack to me meant a lot of money. Here's a pitch, bounce foul. That's the most asinine marketing I've ever heard of. One ball, one strike. These guys say, well, you sing about Cracker Jack. I said, I only sing it because it's in the song. Here's a pitch foul back. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised, even to this day, some youngsters who buy a box of Cracker Jack don't find a prize in the box. One ball, two strikes, 2 out. Well, if you're going to talk about our congressman being crooked, here's a pitch foul out of play. Why not talk about commercial products who don't do what they represent to do?
There's a smash to Squires. He's got it. 1, 2, 3, nothing across. We're going to the bottom of the 7th now to score. All tied up. Milwaukee 4, the White Sox 4. Hey! Everybody! All right, Nancy, let me hear you. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I ever get back for its root for the White Sox. If they don't win, it's a shame. Or it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
There's a drive. Way back. It might be. It could be. And
Hello, Jack McDowell here, Black Jack McDowell, and you're watching the Sports Circus, which is totally cool. So you have a great time watching. Have some fun.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP TV. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, our recorded shows, which are our podcast. Of course, that's our full recorded show. We don't do a podcast like 3 million other people. We actually do a real television and radio show. Also, make sure you check out the partners page. One of those partners that's been with us for a very long time is the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's csncoyotes.com for the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Yes! All right. A big thank you to Dave Jackson, ESPN rules analyst for ESPN Hockey, did the first couple segments with us today. Folks, in case you missed part of the show, go back to one of our platforms, whether your favorite podcast platform, and you can listen to the recorded show in its entirety. And of course, this show for everybody streaming right now on your social media. It is streaming on Facebook for our friends and family, just because. And you can go back and listen on Apple or Spotify or Google or Amazon or Audible, all of those, Pandora. You can't get away from us, folks. We're everywhere. And also on Libsyn, too. So nice round of applause for all of those. But Dave Jackson shed some light on no calls and match penalties and all kinds of great stuff. And Dave is with us every week. Of course, we had a big press release come out on that just a couple of days ago. And in case you missed it, in fact, we're going to post that at the sportscircus.com's website. So you'll be able to see that on the About section under News. And that's going to be out there likely later today. But in the last segment, it was baseball. And yes, the World Series, this World Series is a really good one. Even if you're not a fan of baseball, watch it because you might learn something. And even kids today, watch it because you might learn something, because it's a nice flashback to old school baseball of what it really was. And they're doing it today. And you have two contrasting teams that were built differently that have two different game plans, but at the end of the day, they have the same purpose. So it looks like the Texas Rangers might be able to get one more win, but hey, not so fast, because we've seen in recent time teams that were up 3-1 lose the World Series. We'll go back to 2002 when the San Francisco Giants and those Dusty Baker-led Giants were up 3-1, and somehow Dusty couldn't finish the job and ends up losing the World Series to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim of Orange County, the Orange Curtain of Interstate 5 of the San Andreas Fault, whatever. So the Angels won in 2002, and then in 2016, the unthinkable happened, where, of course, me being a White Sox guy, of course, as you can see, there's White Sox stuff here and here, everybody watching on TV and streaming. If you're listening on the radio, I've got all kinds of White Sox things around here. But at the end of the day, it was the Cubs that needed an act of God to win the World Series, or better yet, they needed the Indians to lose the World Series as the Indians were up 3-1. And of course, that deserves an astounding round of boos because the Indians just couldn't put it away, which are now the Guardians. I don't know. They changed their name because of why, who knows. But nonetheless, the Indians couldn't put the stupid Cubs away. And I say stupid Cubs as it's an endearing thing for me. I'm from Chicago. I was born a mile away from Wrigley Field. So get over it, folks. I can say that I've been to Wrigley 200 times, right? And I think the last maybe 100 times or so I've rooted against the Cubs. Of course, when I was a kid, they lost me. This is too much information, but I'm giving it to you anyway. They lost me as a kid because all the Cubs did was they traded their guys away, their great players away. I've been going back from Lou Brock to Bill Madlock to Rick Monday and on and on and on we go, all the way to even to Greg Maddux, those in the 1980s. and Mark Grace, and on we go. Anyway, the point is they lost me when Bruce Sutter left to go to the Cardinals. And for everybody watching on TV or streaming right now, you can see right over my thumb, I'm pointing to a Cardinal on top of a baseball bat, and that's for the St. Louis Cardinals because I have zero love for the Cub at this point, if you know what I mean. Anyway, all right, moving into college football because we can. You know, the BCS, or the CFP, I should say, rankings are out. And they have Ohio State ranked first. And you know what? I'm actually going to agree with this. And I think Georgia probably slips down to number 2, Michigan at number 3, and Florida State, I'm not really sure that they deserve to be there. But then again, we're going to give it to them because Florida State somehow finds ways to win games. But let's take a look at the upcoming schedule for this weekend. And let's face it, even starting today, we've got, this is at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Ball State travels to Bowling Green. The Falcons of Bowling Green are playing 500 ball. And let's face it, they're good enough to win a couple more games and become bowl eligible like everybody else. It seems that everybody is bowl eligible these days. I mean, in fact, you don't even have to play 500 ball nowadays because there's so many damn bowl games. It's all about the money, right? The money, the money, the money.
Show me the money!
Right? Schools get paid a lot of money to go to these. And most of the time when you see these lesser bowl games played, you're wondering, where's the crowd? They could be playing to a crowd of 3. It doesn't matter. They can play to an empty stadium because of the TV contracts and all those sponsored dollars. So Bowling Green, who knows? They may find themselves in a bowl game, but I know you won't find the Kent State Golden Flashes and the Akron Zips, both at 1-7 face off. And who knows, maybe, well, they can't end in a tie, but it probably should. 2 really bad teams, in my opinion. And, you know, maybe Akron might consider changing their name from the Zips to, I don't know, the Winds or something, because these guys aren't very good. The Zips. I don't know. It reminds me of you're scoring zip. And so, anyway, moving on with TCU traveling over to Lubbock to face the Red Raiders. Now, TCU is 4-4, a far cry from where they were recently, and the Red Raiders have seen better days at 3-5. And you could have caught the Sports Circus and our segments on Raider Radio over there in Lubbock, Texas, as well. But those are 2 teams sort of trying to find a identity, and Texas Tech only gets a 3-point edge at the odds maker because they're the home team. So basically, even the odds makers don't even know what to do with this one. Now, Duke is hosting Wake Forest, reeling from their last loss, an awful loss against Louisville. Duke is still 5-3, and they're playing a 500 Demon Deacons club, but Duke is a 12.5-point favorite. They'll probably win the game, almost similar as they lost the game last week, 23-0. I look for Duke to have a nice win against Wake Forest. Now, moving on, also today, actually tomorrow, by the way, is going to be South Alabama traveling to play the Men of Troy, who are 6-2. It seems like every year these guys are pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and throw this one out there because the Men of Troy from Sal the Bookmaker from PlaceYourBet.Vegas has a win percentage of, yes, against the line, over 84%. How can I do that? Is because I follow the money. I don't care who's injured, what the weather report is, who's with whose girlfriend, wife, whatever. That doesn't matter. Follow the money and you will find winners. That's how that is done. But the Men of Troy at 5.5, likely a 7 to 10 point winner against the Jaguars of South Alabama. Now, another interesting matchup on Friday has Boston College traveling over to Syracuse to face the Orange. And of course, BC has sort of turned it around this year at 5-3, but Syracuse pretty tough at home. You never know what you're going to get there. They've got a good quarterback, but boy, sometimes that defense really shows up. And I'm inclined to lay the 2.5 with a 4-4 Syracuse team over Boston College. Syracuse plays very well at home. Colorado State travels over to Laramie to play the Cowboys of Wyoming. Boy, you never know what you're going to get there, folks. Those guys, they had Fresno State down and out and on the ropes and knocked them out. And that Wyoming team is really tough at home. They don't do really well at home, or I'm sorry, on the road. But Wyoming is a very tough home team. but they're giving up 7 to a Colorado State team. They've won a few games, and remember, they took Colorado all the way to the finish wire. Now, traveling on Saturday is Notre Dame as they go to Clemson. Now, you may recall last time those teams played, Clemson got the better of them in South Bend. Now, the 7-2 Notre Dame club is playing a Clemson team that is fighting for credibility. Look for that one to be a little bit closer. Notre Dame gets a -3 line at the book. And basically what they're saying is on a neutral field, the odds makers say, this is a toss-up game. Flip a coin, you never know what's going to happen. Carolina hosts Campbell in an easy win over in Chapel Hill. Rutgers, the Scarlet Knights, one of the best names in college football and college sports, one of the best. Scarlet Knights at 6-2 are playing the number 1 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes. Wouldn't that be one great upside if Rutgers could take out Ohio State? Now, Indiana, the Hoosiers are facing, we'll call them the Pitchforks, because you look at their logo with the I through the U, it looks like a pitchfork. I always call them pitchforks. Anyway, they are hosting Wisconsin, a 5-3 Badger team. Look for Wisconsin to come in there and take charge. Nebraska travels to East Lansing to play Sparty. Sparty looking for an identity. Nebraska might actually get a road win, and they're actually a road favorite, -3. Arkansas travels to Gainesville. And here's the Gators. You never know what you're going to get there. And Arkansas, boy, they're a lot better than that 2-6 record. Watch out for that one. Jacksonville State goes to South Carolina. Jacksonville State with an easy win against the Gamecocks. Yes, the 2-6 Gamecocks. Who knew? UConn travels to Rocky Top. That's going to be a very, very long day for UConn. Tennessee by 50. A&M, Texas A&M travels to Oxford. The 7-1 Rebels will probably get themselves a nice, easy win, even though they're only a 3-point favorite. Rounding out the last minute or so, Kansas State travels to Austin. Very good game with the Wildcats and the Longhorns. Watch out for Kansas State in that one. Kennesaw State travels to winless Sam Houston State. That one will put you to sleep. Georgia Tech travels over to Virginia to play the Cavs. Georgia Tech with an actual road win coming right up. I think they're going to get that road win. The midshipmen of Navy traveled up to Philadelphia to play Temple. Nobody cares about that one except for the fact that we want Navy to win that one, only because go USA. Arizona State travels to Utah in a very lopsided win coming up for Utah. The Black Knights of Army travel to Air Force. Be a very long day for Army. Air Force is very good. Those guys are 25 for a reason. The Ragin' Cajuns to Arkansas State. Very good one. Let's give that one to the Ragin' Cajuns. South Florida travels to Memphis. Look out, Memphis. Those guys are pretty good. UTSA, that was one of those Cinderella teams from last season, goes to play the Mean Green of North Texas. Watch out there, UTSA in a runaway. Florida State at UAB. Penn State travels to Maryland. And this one, Penn State will probably get a close win on. Florida State may have their hands full with Pittsburgh. And moving on here in our last couple of seconds here, it's Oklahoma goes to Oak State. We're going to give that one to Oklahoma. Illinois goes to Minnesota. We're going to give that one to Minnesota. Iowa goes to Northwestern. Iowa big. Georgia big over Missouri, despite the fact that Missouri is 7-1. And that's going to do it for today's show, folks. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, and we're going to see you in about 23 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.